welcome to The Focus. This part of the show is dedicated to helping you as the voter decide where you are going to put your X come May the 29th. That is 12 minutes after 8. Thank you so much for sticking with us from 6 all the way until now. If you've just tuned in, thank you very much. We are delighted to be in your company. It is crunch time, and welcome to the speed dating table. The gentleman in studio told me that they've never done speed dating, so you know, it doesn't hurt to try out new things. And joining me in studio is, of course, Xiluva's Norman Mohale. Good morning, Norman.
Good morning, Mlu.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you very much.
I'm great. It's Slu. I love Mlu, though, because my surname starts with an M, so we are good to go there.
Apologies.
You see, you are getting speed dating wrong. You're really getting the name wrong.
I will learn over time, Mlu.
And, of course, we've got the UDM's premier candidate, Professor Mthunzi Mdwaba. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning to you, Slu.
How are you?
I'm good, very good. How are you?
I'm great. You came here very early.
Yes, because, you know, I don't like getting lost and I don't like being late.
Okay.
I hate being late. I hate being late for me, so I don't like being late for others. So I'm happy that I'm here.
We understand why you are a professor. We get it. Gentlemen, 42 days away from elections. These have got to be probably the most historic elections since our democratic dispensation. 30 years into it, South Africans have got an opportunity once again to make a difference in terms of who is leading the country. Let's start here. Both your parties have launched their election manifestos. I don't know whether you consider them plans or visions or goals, but I'll start with you, Prof. Tell South Africans, what is it that the UDM has outlined ahead of these elections?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. The UDM's manifesto, we are told, but of course we already knew this, but it's always better when you are objectively told by others.
Sure.
Is probably one of the most solution-oriented manifestos we have in the political landscape at the moment, in that it focuses a lot on what it is we want done, rather than, you know, the rhetoric of criticism of what is wrong.
Okay.
Because we know there's a lot that's wrong.
Okay.
But having said that, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that the manifesto is probably your core, your heartbeat, your bedrock. It will guide you as you go into different conversations. For Gauteng, for example, having had the honor and the privilege and the responsibility over the last few days to be the UDM candidate, we would have to then look at the Gauteng priorities.
Right.
And as we deal with the Gauteng priorities, see how we align them with the manifesto. You can't just simply, I think, take the manifesto and throw it down Gauteng people without having that tweak.
And we are going to get into what those plans are for Gauteng. Norman, let me bring you in. Xiluva, what is Xiluva's election manifesto? What are you selling to South Africans?
Well, I think it starts with the name. We deliberately decided that we are not going to call ourselves some African Congress, whatever. And deliberately and intentionally so, because we believe that we need to stop assimilating as Africans.
Okay.
When white people got into this country, there were systems in place and they were working. And we strongly believe that we need to go back to Africanism.
Okay.
Even our ideology is Ubuntu. It is not some capitalism, socialism, or whatever you might want to assimilate or import from foreign countries.
Okay.
So basically we are saying to Africans, let's go back to basics, let's be Africans, let's define how we want our wealth to be redistributed, let's define who are the custodians of our land without really assimilating with foreign cultures.
Okay. There's a lot of issues that are facing Gauteng. We'll get into those. Your stance on immigration, land expropriation, unemployment, crime, the list goes on and on. Prof, let me throw it back to you. What's UDM's vision or plan for the province of Gauteng specifically?
So, When I was asked to quickly put something together soon after being announced with the team and, brainstorming some ideas, what is clear is that South Africa is a turnaround project.
Explain.
South Africa is in a crisis. So we are on the precipice of falling off a cliff.
Okay.
So we are almost a failed state, not quite.
Okay.
Because we've got a lot of parts that are working. And the parts that are working are particularly in the minority areas.
Okay.
Your white monopoly capital related areas, your JSE related areas. For example, I was reading an interesting debate on the newspapers about somebody's written an article about how much money the CEO of Standard Bank is getting, how much money they are making, and how everybody needs to learn from the financial sector and so on and so on. So those areas are working well, but I work well in parentheses, and we can come back to why I say in inverted commas in parentheses, because for me, it's also pseudo wellness, right? Not really true. But the majority of everything we do in South Africa, whether it's lights, whether it's water, whether it's potholes, whether it's toxic water, whether it's issues of NSFAS boards being dissolved by the Nzimandes, whether it's the students, the young people's monies not getting to where they live so that they don't owe land a few days ago from a higher institution that NSFAS will not pay, for example, for particular degrees, will pay for others. There's a lot that's wrong. So it's a mess, right? And Gauteng is the largest province in the country. It contributes just over 33% to the GDP.
Yes.
Right? Our budget is I think it's 165 billion, right? Now, if South Africa is in a mess, and the biggest part, Gauteng itself, is a microcosmic picture of the mess, because that's what it is. Water. Let's take water as an example. So I don't know if you've seen lately that as much as yes, Gauteng and South Africa have grown, and therefore we should have made plans to have more water provisioning. For 9 years, we've been working on some Lesotho project, which is promising, but it's been 9 years. But let's put that aside for now and focus on the things that are wrong with the current supply we have. So there's a research that was done where Durban ranks the highest in terms of water leakages from our pipes at 58%.
Okay.
And Joburg, Gauteng, sits at 48%, number 2. So 48% of our water leaks out of our taps, right? So it's the same as potholes, really. It's the same as everything that lacks maintenance and infrastructure building and making sure it's enhanced. So for us, whatever you look at, you've got short-term, medium-term, long-term challenges. So if I just talk about the short-term, those are the short-term. Those are the areas where, as the UDM, we say are quick wins.
Okay.
Because all we need to do is to galvanize the communities and the people and work with the people, not have a top-down structure like the people in authority are doing at the moment, right? And I call them people in authority, as I indicated to you, because we have no leadership. Leadership is something that is a very nebulous concept right now in South Africa. We've got people that are sitting there, and by virtue of being people in authority, they are highly egotistical, highly incompetent, don't know what they are doing.
Okay.
Right? So we need to bring teams that are competent. We need to believe in the youth of this country. One of the things for me that is completely absurd is to read in the amendments to the Home Affairs, whatever, these nomadic passports and whatever you. When I read that the minister believes that we don't have skills in South Africa, so we need passports for young people to come and help us with ICT skills. I thought this is ridiculous, because how do you know what we don't have when we've never checked for it? Shouldn't we be doing an audit of South African and therefore Gauteng as well as the largest province of our skills? Then we decide what it is we need from outside, if we do need it from outside.
Okay.
Because we have a youthful 70% demographic opportunity.
Right.
Young people who are highly talented, highly, looking and hungry for stuff, but we're not enabling and empowering them. That's what we want to do as the UDM.
Norman, Xiluva's plan for Gauteng, I mean, Xiluva is a new party, yes, but the leader has quite a phenomenal track record, if you will, of the work that he has done in his quote-unquote previous life, because I've learned that political party leaders don't like to be referenced by their former political parties to say, when you were in that other party, you know, they call it the previous life. So in his previous life, he did pretty well. Do we see that translating should Xiluva run Gauteng? What do you have for the residents of Gauteng?
Most definitely, Slu. The credibility of governance or government is very important to us as Xiluva. And I'm going to particularly reference 3 action plan items of national competence, but of course, because they do have an impact or consequence in our plans in Gauteng, I will definitely specifically reference them. So we need to agree that for South Africa to work, we need to get young people off the streets. That's very critical, because we are paying for the social ills in many different ways, especially because 70% of our people are young and are on the streets. So we have a concept that we have adopted as part of our action plan as Xiluva, which is called conscription. Conscription is a concept where government takes young people, particularly we say between the ages of 18 to 39, and send them to the army. No experience needed, no qualifications needed. We taking them to the army, train them as soldiers, but 6 months into their graduation, we then identify their passion areas and intervene as a government to then work with TVET colleges, higher institution, higher education institutions, to make sure that we assist these young people, we get them sober. What that will do, Slu, is that you remove an opportunity for drug lords to operate, because there will be no customers. What it does is that you remove an opportunity for illegal liquor traders. You remove an opportunity for contact petty crimes. So that deals a lot with a whole lot of our social ills that we're paying for. For instance, when young people fight and injure each other at a tavern, we are paying for that at a public clinic or hospital. The police that are investigating those kind of crimes, those are state resources. So there's a lot of social ills that we are paying for as a government, and we are saying we need to remove these young people from the streets first and foremost.
And this removing of young people off the streets and putting them, into the army will be mandatory. That's what you are saying.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Of course, there will be parents and children that are saying from matric, I'm going straight to university or TVET or wherever they want. But we are saying those that are unable to have those options, government will then have the responsibility of removing them from the streets and sending them to the army, training them, keeping them sober for that 2 years, and then redirecting them to institutions of higher learning, and providing that financial support.
So that's the first item. What's the second one?
That's the first item. And the second item, SLU, is dissolution of provincial spheres of government. Prof here indicated that we're spending 165 billion in Gauteng for the provincial on the provincial government. Imagine a life, Slu, where you redirect that money into municipalities. You redirect that money into municipalities. You redirect the skills that are located at a provincial level to frontline frontline service delivery people. That will go a long way in creating a lot of service delivery issues that we're dealing with in the country. So we strongly believe that provincial sphere of government is highly unnecessary, and it needs to be dissolved, and we redirect the funds and the skills that are located there. That also will assist and go a long way in terms of removing the red tape. For instance, I'll give you an example. For the municipality to build a normal road, there's a lot of red tape that happens. There's applications that the municipality must do to the province, to national, and you find that in most instances, some projects end up not happening because of the politics between province and the municipalities. So we strongly believe that provincial sphere of government is unnecessary. You only need these two spheres of government, national and the local municipalities.
Okay, let me help you close your argument. The third point on the points that you have.
Yes, so land.
Okay.
Before the Land Act, land in South Africa belonged to the people under the custodianship of Amakhosi.
Okay.
Now, we truly and strongly believe that we need to go back there. One might argue and say, but do we have Amakhosi that will be able to administer that land?
Right.
Properly? But the reality is that once that land was taken, it dealt with the development of social council. Tribal councils. Now that obviously dealt with the capacity element to it. We truly believe and strongly believe that we need to go back there, develop these tribal councils, capacitate them so that the land can go back to our people and there will be proper beneficiation. Because reality is slow. Black people lost value immediately when land was taken from them. A lot of commercial land is located in the Western Cape. And that has robbed black people of our commercial value. So land must go back to our people. Those are the three items, action plan items of Xiluva with national competence. I don't know if you want me to come to...
We'll definitely get into those. For now, I'd like us to go ahead and pay some bills. It is 28 minutes after 8 right here on Hope Alive Breakfast. No, we still have to pay until either of you takes over. Maybe we won't have to pay. I'm on the speed dating table with the UDM, yeah?
Prof might have money to pay for you.
Where from? Where?
There are people that went there with some ridiculous figures. Probably they know something we don't know.
We are on the speed dating table this morning on The Focus with Professor Mthunzi Mdwaba as well as Norman Mohale, Xiluva, and the UDM. Have you decided where you are going to put that X come May the 29th? Are you sold on the UDM's plan for Gauteng as a Gauteng resident? Are you sold on Xiluva's plan for Gauteng as a Gauteng resident? Let me know on 067-153-1089. We are back after this. We will be definitely taking your questions and, of course, continuing to let the two representatives try and convince you so you can take them on a second date, which basically is putting the eggs on the ballot.
Through to 6 p.m. exclusive on Hope Alive Radio.
Hello, family. My name is Rorisan Tandekiso, and you're listening to Hope Alive, shaping minds for a better future. Choose Jesus.
And we are back. You are still tuned in to The Focus right here on Hope Alive Online Radio. Joining me in studio is UDM and Xiluva. Norman, am I right in saying that Xiluva means flower?
Yes.
Flower. It means flowers of the revolution.
It's flowers of the revolution, definitely.
This is very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
No, you are really on the speed dating table. You know flowers are important for a date, right?
And we say UDM revolution. You see, that's what I'm saying, Xiluva. It's very close to us. Conscription, I don't know, They talk about traditional leaders. This is sounding like my manifesto. I'm thinking, well, did I read the wrong manifesto?
Is this a coalition talk I'm seeing here?
Yeah, and I'm like thinking, where am I?
No. I think South Africans are realizing that one, we need to go back to basics, unite as Africans, but most importantly, as Xiluva. A flower, for a flower to blossom, you need to nurture it. So we are more as South Africans realizing that we need to nurture and develop young people for this country to have a greater future.
Yeah, no, these flowers are flourishing in darkness because load shedding. Well, we are on day 20 of no load shedding, which then brings us to my next question as to what your party's stance are. What is, Prof, UDM's plan as far as load shedding is concerned? Because this is something that is top of our minds. Load shedding. What's the plan there?
I think UDM's plan towards just infrastructure fixing and maintenance and enhancement is that we need to take very pragmatic approaches. I started with you by saying this is a turnaround province, like the country itself. And when you have a turnaround, you have to have a strong team that is knowledgeable. You have to have teams. Sometimes what we fail in leadership, you can very safely surround yourself with people that are smarter than you,
Okay.
who know better than you, who can be able to help with the problem, right?
Okay.
So the same thing with load shedding is that, we, of course, I don't know now why, nobody can explain why we're on 20 days without load shedding when it's...
And we are supposed to be celebrating.
When it's accompanying. Well, this is the problem, is that you end up celebrating and being excited by things that should naturally be there for you to consume and enjoy. Right?
Sure.
So we've been conditioned now to be excited and pray and hope that, oh my God, we make it to 21 and 22 to 22 days. And our plan really is that we can move to this transition on renewable energy, and we believe we need to get there eventually. But we need to do it, of course, in a steady pace, very slow. We are of the view that people must stop working on imposed solutions on us from somewhere else. And when I say somewhere else, I mean Eurocentric concepts
Okay.
of people who came into our country, took our things, went and developed themselves from our country, and then fast forwarded themselves. And now they come and tell us, for example, you can't use coal. We are not insensitive to the fact that coal eventually may need to be phased out if we don't find ways that are clean of being able to use coal.
Okay.
But you can't, in a developing country that is so behind on doing things for its people, come and tell us, especially when those people who are imposing it are the ones who are the biggest consumers and the biggest people who mess up in terms of the carbon footprint, right? And then we can get into that discussion about the Paris agreements and all those agreements later. So for us, we are saying it must be a slow transition to renewable energy, but we have opportunities. We have good sun. Everybody's always said this. We have good sun this side of the world for solar energy and extracting that solar energy into battery storage, which is there are countries that want to partner with us that have expertise in this. But of course, even when they partner with us, we must be the ones who benefit the most. Secondly, we do believe that there needs to be some private sector partnership in terms of Eskom. Of course, we don't want to repeat the SAA Takatso that, the UDM was responsible for stopping in its tracks, which is the other thing people don't know, is that when we say corruption destroys freedom, for us, ethical governance is core to everything we do. So Gauteng would place ethical governance at the very top, because all the speaker, Mapisa Ngakula, was Holomisa and Gwangwa in Parliament that made sure that she was reported, and now she's gone. The Steinhoff issues was us as well. Marcus Jooste, whether he killed himself or not, we don't know. But the point for us is that ethical governance is key. So we don't want a repeat of those SAA Takatso issues. We think equity would have to be up to 49% for the private sector should it happen, and no more than that. And whatever happens, for me, when you talk about job creation, which happens as well in the energy space, because the
Right.
energy space is but one of many sectors that are going to grow, particularly as you move towards renewable energy. We also need to see that when a private sector player or private sectors player come in, they are not then going to start doing the old-fashioned stuff of assumed productivity by cutting costs and retrenching our workers, because that's not how it works.
Okay.
We need to be very careful about, as we do those partnerships going forward, we must get our lights back more than, sustainably, because if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, which South Africa fails on all, including Gauteng as the biggest province, Sustainable Development Goal number 7 is affordable energy for all our people. So affordable also becomes a very important part of the sustainability of the energy in terms of the question that you ask.
And I mean, your election manifesto does say that one of the things you aim to do is to produce a map of existing infrastructure to measure progress and to assure the future development takes place in a fair and equitable manner to avoid the current situation where these projects have a tribal or ethnic
Yep.
tinge.
Yep.
This UDM infrastructure map will have timelines and deliverables.
Yep.
Timelines are something that we are familiar with as South Africans. Deliverables, not so much. Xiluva, Norman, where does Xiluva stand as far as addressing the load shedding problem is concerned? Because we've had other political parties that have said, like the ATM, who've said, we don't have a load shedding problem, we have a leadership crisis. What's your take?
Well, I think we need to agree that plans are of minimal consequence without precise and accurate execution. You are right, we have a leadership problem, and the problem is at the administrative level, that our government has not made enough effort to compete with private sector for the best skills. And we strongly believe in meritocracy, that those appointed in government must be the best out of us. So we agree with what is currently happening, though, in bits and pieces in the metros, where the metros are now trying to move away from dependence on ESCOM. And I agree with Prof that as Xiluva, we will be aggressively pursuing private public partnerships to make sure that, one, we work on renewable energy. But those partnerships, at the center of it, like Prof said, must be affordability to the actual clients or customers, who in this instance are the Gauteng residents. And we strongly think that has been the weakness in ESCOM strategy, because you probably all of us sitting here, we are complaining about our electricity bills where we seated. But, Slu, if you look across Gauteng, there's a lot of industrial parks that have been abandoned.
Okay.
There's a lot of farms that have been abandoned. There's a lot of vast land that government must really go into, either councils or provincial legislatures, even if it means to the National Assembly. Get those approvals in place. I think when I was in China some few years back, what I learned is that what triggered development and fast-tracked it in China, those guys went into all the spheres of government legislatures or legislative bodies, got all the approvals. They will just put a prototype of what the city will be looking like. And they will go to business people like Prof and say, Prof, here is our plan, here are the approvals, where is your interest? And Prof will identify, I'm interested, for instance, in renewable energy. Then they sign whatever that needs to sign, and a few days later, Profs come back with his TLBs and he starts construction. The red tape is at the center of the underdevelopment of our country, and we need to deal with that. So we are saying as Xiluva, every red tape element that is within the competence of Gauteng legislature, we will remove it and make sure, obviously, that we enable a stimulus that are responsible for investment in the country, in the province. Anyone who tells asks Gauteng voters that government is responsible or government can create jobs is lying.
Okay.
Government has no capacity to create jobs, but it has capacity to enable investment and business to flourish and by extension create jobs.
Okay.
So that is our attitude and our approach as Xiluva, that we will not deal with the issue of load shedding until we remove our independence from ESCOM. Now, you create a competition element in that because there are various theories about load shedding, which are beginning now to make sense. That, over weekends, we don't have load shedding. Last year, December, we did not have load shedding because people are at home and people were building up to elections. Now you begin now to not necessarily believe, but to consider and interrogate these theories that this thing is man-made or it's a leadership problem.
Right. Yeah, we didn't have the load shedding during the Rugby World Cup, I must say. Yeah, I even became a rugby fan myself. And it's interesting that, Norman, you speak about government not being responsible for creating jobs, but for creating an enabling environment. Because we've got a question here from Ati, who is a Gauteng resident himself, and he says, good morning. How exactly would the two parties help with permanent job creation to address the high unemployment in the country? Prof, let's start with you.
So this is an area I always try and avoid because I have personal stuff involved in it. But I'm going to try and navigate it as best as I can. So you would have seen 2 weeks ago, there was this launch of huge job creation by the Department of Employment and Labour, Mr. Nglesi, together with Panyasa Lesufi, Nasi Spani, got 8.2 billion apparently for Gauteng out of the 23.8 billion that the Department of Employment and Labour dished out for the creation of employment. Now, I mention this because that project was an attempted rip-off of my project.
Oh.
Yes, it's a very unsuccessful rip-off because incompetent people can't even steal properly, unfortunately, and we're dealing with incompetent people here. And when I listened to Panyaza and I listened to people from the department trying to explain how they formulated this idea to create employment, it is exactly, people were sending me things on X and on LinkedIn and everybody say, but this is like they stole your idea. I said, no, they tried. The rhetoric of it is the idea. And the idea, by the way, is quite simple. And it's what I would do for Gauteng, is that you need to, my history is in human capital development. I built companies in that space. One of my companies was a company that we built in 27 countries called Talk IT, training high technical skills, but focusing mostly on the conversion of those skills into employability. This is the key here, right? But people like this Nasi Spani and whatever are training, first of all, as a obfuscation, smokes and mirrors to fool people into believing there's going to be jobs.
Okay.
And then they come up with big numbers that are going to completely confuse people. But really, they also talk about training opportunities and employment opportunities. You mustn't talk about employment opportunities. You must talk about employment. There's a very big difference.
Right.
Don't sell the hope of a job. Sell a job.
Okay.
Right? And that's what sustainability. So she's right in the question that she's asking. You need to be able to, first of all, do an audit, as I said earlier on. What skills do we have? What skills don't we have? Then you need to focus on the sectors that are likely to grow jobs for us so that you are able to transition the ones that are losing jobs, the sectors, at the same time as you grow the others in other sectors, you are able to take them in and analyze and assess and convert and manage them and incubate them, enterprises, have a sustainable enterprises, have a sustainable economy. But in doing that, you can only create a sustainable job if you build ecosystems. And an ecosystem has to be very focused on every area. Gauteng, for example, you can't build an ecosystem for drawing jobs in Gauteng to be the same as one in the Northwest or to be the same as one in KZN because these are three different provinces with three different needs and three different kind of focuses, right?
Sure.
So the jobs that we're creating at the moment are jobs that are designed to be around for 6 months, for a year, and then our young people end up having because you go into it thinking, I've got an expectation of a permanent job, right? And for me, it's like a toss between having people who've got degrees and who've got qualifications sitting in the township and having mental health problems. Which one is better compared to giving an expectation that you're going to have a job, and then all of a sudden, 6 months down the line, you're dropped off? I think that's even worse, right? And then you are now having to go claim from a UIF. You can't even claim that much from UIF because UIF works on a model where for 4 years that you've worked gives you 1 year of qualification to collect, right? So to have sustainable jobs, you need to know what you're doing. You need to be able to focus on the communities and make sure that you are working with people in teams. We have, for example, the whole country, we've got UIF centers. I think we've got about between 134 and 136 centers, I think, that we have the whole country. But they are not a one-stop shop that you can create. We've got something called Public Employment Services in the Department of Employment and Labor, which is not functioning at all, but which, if you were to use, is supposed to be one of the largest databases in the country where you enable and post jobs that are aligned to what exists in Alex or in Soweto or in Randfontein or in whatever areas where our people are not getting jobs. But also the way of creating sustainable jobs for me is being able to understand what to do with innovation. Now, at the moment, we don't understand innovation, right? Innovation and creativity are important with entrepreneurship. To have innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship means you've got the ingredients to build an enterprise. We need to build enterprises. We need to make sure that our young people who in Africa and South Africa and Gauteng, I've checked the stats, we have the highest take-up of enterprises by innovative young people. They fail because of a failure to access finance, because all our DFIs, the Development Financial Institutions, are funders of last resort. And everybody will tell you that in the developing world today, everybody who knows what they're doing, you make those DFIs funders of first resort. Then you can bring the private sector to partner and incentivize the private sector to partner with you. But you will also find that these young people have the highest failure rate of their enterprises because there's no, exactly what Norman was talking about, the enabling, the empowerment, the hand-holding, right? We don't even have a policy on employment in this country. I don't know if you're aware, Slu. So how are you going to craft anything when you don't even know what it is South Africa needs? We don't even know what Gauteng needs, what any part of South Africa needs. So when you have a job, you are throwing, it's like throwing darts. You know, if you've seen people throwing darts, you're looking to hit the mark somehow. But how are you going to hit the mark when you don't even know? We don't have an industrial policy. We need to craft one. We will craft one. We'll craft an employment policy. We know how to. We've got friends who've done it many times, places like Singapore that are very successful. But also we don't have a policy on the future of work, the industrial revolution that we talk about, and simplify it for our people, because you can't go talk fourth industrial revolution, you know, in the rural villages and the peri-urban, and you need to break it down and say, listen, this is what we're going to do now going forward. Now, some of us, let me be specific here, you know, in 2019 at the International Labour Organization, I led all the teams in the crafting of the International Labour Organization Declaration on the Future of Work. So this is not theory, and this is the other thing I think we need to be very careful of, is that we've got a lot of people that work on a theoretical conjecture. You know, you have people who've never even run a simple spaza anywhere, because, you know, I think that's where you learn skills. Go run a spaza, run something, sell magwinya. Then you know that, you know, when you get 10 rand and 5 rand comes back, how much is profit, how much is turnover. We have people in authority who don't know those very simple things. So we need to have people who understand what they're doing.
Well, they fought in the wars during apartheid. Surely that counts for something. No, man.
Maybe
I'm going to have to.
You have? How many guns came back? And I don't know.
Exactly. Norman, I'm going to throw it to you because we are running out of time, gentlemen. Xiluva's plan in terms of addressing the high unemployment in the country, in the province.
Well, of the 165 billion, Slu, that Prof referred to.
Hey, this is money.
This is good money.
Only just over 1.7 billion was allocated in this financial year 24-25 for economic development. Now, this talks to you about the level of prioritization in the current governing party. You can't grow an economy create employment when you don't prioritize economic development. Now, when you talk of economic development, you need to look at the infrastructure development. Our roads are a mess. We're struggling with water. 48% of our water is lost. There's potholes all over.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, as a business person, Prof will teach us that when you look to invest anywhere, you look at the infrastructure. The infrastructure in Gauteng is chaos. We will focus on urgently so. In the first day of government as Xiluva, we'll focus on infrastructure development around the issue of electricity, energy and power, around bulk water, around road infrastructure. We'll focus on that and make sure that we get that out of the way. Because reality is Gauteng is losing its attractive power to the Western Cape. How do you explain that a multinational like Amazon will choose to invest in Cape Town as opposed to Gauteng? Ordinarily, any multinational in the past used to come to Gauteng as a destination of choice for investment. Now we are slowly but surely losing that number one spot to the Western Cape. We need to go back as Gauteng as the number one investment destination for this country.
I mean, you would lose that spot to the Western Cape because I think the DA's leader made it quite clear that you must stay off, stay wherever you are. Don't come to the Western Cape. But we know that was...
because it's a Eurocentric enclave, you see, the Western Cape. And if I may just add, the issues we have with safety, with crime, people take them out of context. They call us all kinds of labels, xenophobic. There's no such a thing as xenophobic for an African child, right? But we have to focus on the truth. The truth of the matter is, if you are sitting in your community or your town or your home and you can't have a job, and somebody else who is likely to be an illegal immigrant comes into your space, you're going to get very upset when they take your job. And when we as employers forego the law book and we don't care, we just take them because we can pay them less. That is unacceptable. Which for me, so when you look at safety of the child at home, safety of our parents, safety of women in terms of gender-based violence, safety, crime, is into a large extent a big problem in itself. But when you also have this element of illegal immigration and some people very mischievously talking about opening the borders, because I don't know, there are no borders in Europe. I don't know where they got this concept, but I actually think the other day I was in a debate with somebody from another party. I won't mention the name of the party, in a church, and she kept on saying there are no borders. So I said to one of my colleagues, what does she mean there are no borders? It appears that there was a story somewhere on TV where there was one place that didn't have a border, and somebody pointed that there should have been a border there. Because when I said to her, but when I go to Botswana, I see borders. When I go to Maputo, I see borders. When I go to Swaziland, I see borders. I think for me, the confusion for most people is two things. Is that they think because the Europeans have arrangements, for example, in Europe, you've got the Schengen visa, which means you can cooperate. If you get a visa from France, you can go to the Netherlands. If you get in Switzerland, you can go, that's good. We must also have that as Africans, that freedom of movement in terms of our visa arrangements. But we must close our borders. The second, I think, confusion comes of what is called a mobility of skills. So I think other people think when you talk mobility of skills, you're talking about skills on feet, on foot, that you must walk across and bring the skills. But skills mobility talks to the human capital development of a person to be able to be mobile from one country to the next or from one province to the next. So because you've got skills that are mobile, that can be used anywhere else. Yeah.
Well, we have run out of time, but like I said, this is a speed dating table, and I think, gentlemen
I've learned speed dating.
Absolutely.
I'm going to try it.
No.
In my personal life. I shouldn't try speed dating.
Not in your personal life.
It doesn't work.
Let's fix the province first.
Then we can talk about
exactly. Parting shots. I'm going to give each of you a minute for this one. Prof, I wake up on the 29th of May, 2024. It'll most likely be a cold day. Why should I put my ex? Why should Gauteng residents put their ex next to UDM?
Because when it comes to building investor confidence, when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment, when it comes to bringing pride and dignity to our people via the creation of decent jobs, via the creation of enterprises that are sustainable to the economy, when it comes to safety for our people in their communities and their backyards and wherever they are, when it comes to corruption being done away with, we have a track record of 27 years. We say corruption destroys freedom. And for us, for the whole of South Africa and for the whole of the province, we are saying make South Africa and make Gauteng respected again.
Norman, I wake up on the 29th of May. It's cold. I'm probably load shed. I need to go and vote. I've registered to vote. Why Xiluva?
Well, firstly, Slu, as Xiluva, we did not take any money from anyone to run our campaign. So we owe no one any favors when we get into government, except the Gauteng voters and in general South African voters, because that's one of the biggest problem of South African politics, that people are funded to campaign in return for favors in government. Secondly, we are led by our President Bongani Baloyi, who led Mdwaba as a mayor for 8 years, clean audits in Mdwaba, clean delivery of services. He took Mdwaba from being number 16 in the world to number 5. So there's a track record and there's a clear understanding in terms of what governance looks like and what government should look like. Personally, I've worked in the city of Tshwane for years. At one point, I was the divisional head in the mayor's office. And in that time, there are buildings that are standing that I can literally point to you and say, this is our legacy during our tenure at that time. There are also families that I still talk to who have built houses, who have took to high tertiary education, and we got the city to pay for them. Ordinarily, kids that under normal circumstances will not have those opportunities. There are businesses that we have enabled to blossom, private businesses, proper entrepreneurship, not entrepreneurship, that we have enabled the environment for them to operate in Tshwane, and they're there, they're still standing. And so we have a track record of government, of governance. We are not just theorizing it.
Well, that is Xiluva for you, and you've heard what the UDM has got to offer you as the Gauteng resident. And we've got a closing remark here from one of our listeners, Mthunzi, who says, I think this stance on immigration is just a populist in my view.
Well, don't know about that.
It's getting trickier and trickier.
Well, he needs to go to Oliven, Slu. There's really very sad stories in Oliven of illegal immigrants committing really crimes there.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us this morning. Thank you for sharing your party's visions for the province of Gauteng. And I think for Gauteng residents, you know, it's more window shopping until we get to the 29th of May. But thank you for sharing the vision. And I hope that these insights will definitely help our listeners. Most importantly, the Gauteng residents. That is where we are going to leave it with you. Thank you very much.
Speed dating, window shopping. These are good concepts. Thank you.
And of course, we have a minute before 9. So this is where we are going to wrap it up. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that made today's edition of the show a success. A big thank you to Mthunzi for coming through and giving us motivation in the first hour. A big thank you to Ayanda Dankiso for giving us her analysis on the independent candidates that are running in these elections. And of course, how can I forget the two gentlemen, Professor Mthunzi Mdwaba from the UDM, as well as Norman Mohale from Xiluva. I foresee a coalition. If it happens, remember I said it. And
on the speed dating show.
And of course, a big thank you to you, our listener. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for allowing us to give you godly vibes from 6 all the way until now. The Talk Ladies are standing by. I'm back again tomorrow with the Womandla Wednesday.